old cliche that the missionaries taught us how to read and the communists gave us a book. Have you ever heard that expression? If you have, that may mean you're from my generation. But there was a period of time when the missionaries taught people to read, but it was the communists who gave the next generation material that would steer them their direction. I want to borrow that idea. Here's what's happened in the United States. There were 4 major publishing companies that all began as family businesses. They began in Grand Rapids. Publishers known as Kriegels, Erdmans, Baker, and Zondervan. And they all began as family businesses. They all tended to print Reformed or Calvinistic literature. And basically, if I can modify that expression, it was churches like yours and mine that did the evangelism, but the Calvinists did the discipleship by giving them something to read. Now, if you analyze that analogy too closely, I'm not accusing Calvinists as being communists, but I am just saying that we have not done a good job of articulating our position and stating our position, and the book market has been predominantly dominated by a theology and a position different than our own. The second big problem that we're now experiencing is that these mom and pop printing companies have been bought out and are now being bought out. In 1987, Zondervan became a wholly owned subsidiary of HarperCollins. Thomas Nelson bought out Word Publishers in 1992. In 2013, HarperCollins bought out Thomas Nelson. But HarperCollins is owned by News Corporation. And if you're savvy, you realize that the chairman of the board of News Corp is Rupert Murdoch. And so the one man who controls the printing of most evangelical literature today is Rupert Murdoch. The bottom line is that News Corp now controls 50% of the Christian market. And what that has developed into is that these are subsidiaries that now exist to generate a profit for the company that owns them. And so someone said it like this: a nonprofit company is responsible to the Lord. A for-profit company is responsible to shareholders. And so essentially, what has happened to the Christian book market and publishing industry is that we are now printing what sells. We are not printing what people need to read. And so the average Christian bookstore is probably stocked with very superficial and sometimes even heretical products. The Christian publishing industry now sells $4 billion worth of merchandise annually. But when you factor out the pop psychology, self-help, feel-good books, the end-time fiction, the celebrity biography, and the opportunist author who is trying to capitalize on current events, if you take all of that out of the average Christian bookstore, about all you have left are the romance novels. And I hope I haven't offended the entire group at this point. But what I'm saying is the church has 2,000 years of literary history, and you'd never know it by visiting the average Christian bookstore. And so what's happening is we are publishing today from a bestseller list that's dominated by a few celebrity authors. Bob Fryland of InterVarsity Press said the biggest changes in the large publishers is that they are involved in this competition for brand name evangelical authors. And so it's harder for first-time authors to get published. It's harder for anyone to get published who doesn't have that kind of a public platform. This leads to still another problem that was highlighted by World Magazine in June 28th of this year, and they're now talking about this unequal yoke in which some of these subsidiaries that are evangelical publishers are spinning off another publishing company that may publish something very contrary to our evangelical positions. For instance, Waterbrook Multnomah Publishing Group published a book by Matthew Vines on God and the gay Christian this April, which had a pro-homosexual agenda. So national religious broadcasters talk to Multnomah and give them a choice. Do you want to stay in our membership, or do you want to resign? Well, they eventually resigned, but that's the case that we're now facing, is that we can't really tell our people what they need to hear. We cannot really publish the kind of literature that is needed to reform the church, because our publishing companies are now owned by subsidiaries who are creating other subsidiaries that are publishing material that undermines our position. Now you realize where we are. It's simply the almighty dollar that's driving this whole thing. And so you've got Multnomah as one subsidiary, Waterbrook as another, Convergent as another. They are now part of a Crown Publishing Company, which is part of Penguin Random House, which is part of a private German-held company that had $20 billion in revenue last year. Now, somebody's making a lot of money, but we're really not addressing the needs that are in our church today. Now, the fifth problem that's happening in the publishing world is that there is developing a very wide gulf between the popular market and the academic market. Here's the trend in the academic market. In the academic market, it is publish or perish. You have to publish in the academic market. And what is happening is scholars are trying to review everything that's been said previously on their subject and then put a new spin on it. And so the agenda today is to say something that's never been said. Then you have your own particular niche. You are the advocate of a certain position. And